This is Think Out Loud on OPB. I'm Jen Chavez, and this week for Dave Miller. Fire season is underway in the American West, and Oregon is being hit very hard right now. Over 350,000 acres have burned in the state after lightning strikes ignited multiple clusters of fires last week. All hands are on deck right now to protect Oregonians and try to get these fires under control. Joining us for an update on where things stand currently is the Oregon State Fire Marshal, Mariana Ruiz-Temple. Mariana, thank you so much for joining us today at what I know is such a busy time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So at last check, there were 70 fires actively burning right now around the state. And I'd love to know, what are the fires or complexes causing you and your colleagues the most concern right now?
Yeah, definitely entering into a challenging and dynamic fire season in the West, and certainly in Oregon. When we're looking at Oregon, Oregon has entered into preparedness level 5, which is the highest level of fire activity, and it is marked by extreme wildfire activity. And that means in terms of the amount of fires on our landscape and the amount of incident management teams that are out there. As a whole, Oregon is bumping around 450,000 acres burned thus far, and a couple of the areas that we have concern on. I'll talk a little bit about the three areas: the Central Oregon area, the Aqua Butte, and the Brewer fires. Both of those fires are under unified command between ODF and OSFM. And the Aqua fire, which is burning outside of the town of Sisters, we're around 10,400 acres, about 3% containment. The Brewer fire actively burning, torching, and spotting around 25,000 acres and about 1% contained. Both of those fires are of concern due to the close proximity to structures, the fuel and the behavior of those fires, and potential weather events that we see coming in that area later in the week. So both of those are priority fires for both agencies. Burning in Eastern Oregon was the Row Creek complex. Those were a series of 11 fires that were burning in Wheeler County. And that has early on were 11 fires. Those have, for the most part, converged into Oregon's first mega fire. And we are around 143,000 acres, about 15% containment. We're starting to feel more comfortable about the impacts to communities and structures, but a lot of coordination between locals, rurals, fire districts, wildland firefighters, and the feds on that fire. That is, again, our first mega fire in Oregon this year. We're also working on the Hagen fire, which is burning outside of Pendleton. That is impacting communities and structures in the East Umatilla area. That continues to see isolated torching and short-term spotting. And the conditions in that area at night, we continue to see fire be active and move down slope. In that area and those kind of flashy fuels, those are areas of concern, especially with proximity to those structures. Again, Hagen fire. Lastly, I'm happy to report on the East Evans Creek fire, which is burning outside of Shady Cove in Jackson County. We're at 15,000 acres. About 20% containment. But what's important here is that as we continue to see improvements, especially around communities and structures, the Blue Incident Management Team is looking to demobilize over the next couple days, which is a good indicator that that is also commensurate with what we're hearing with evacs lowering over the next hour, that we're hearing that those that are in level 3 will likely be going to level 2. So those are good indicators with good progress, good work around and near communities that helps us relieve our system and bring more availability into the Oregon Fire Mutual Aid system.
Okay, thank you so much for that overview. I do want to ask just a couple questions. You mentioned concerns around the proximity to communities and structures. Are any fires threatening urban centers or rangeland in a way right now that's concerning you?
Yeah, we had a significant, in our rangelands, Gillum County, Sherman County, that last lightning storm had significant efficiency in starting new fires. And Earlier this week, over the weekend, a lot of work in our RFPAs, our rangelands, our local landowners in Sherman and Gillum County. We did have the Hogue Fire, which was burning outside of Arlington. Significant impacts and potential to the town of Arlington, and really good work during those evenings. But what we're seeing in the Umatilla country and in our rangelands, that when that lightning hits and those fuels are ready in terms of their ability to ignite, that we are seeing those long-term complexes come on more. So they are being managed by incident management teams, and we continue to see good work on containment in those areas.
We've talked a little bit about how lightning strikes have started some of these fires. Can you speak a little bit more about how weather conditions have affected your efforts and what the outlook is in the days ahead for those conditions when it comes to these fires?
Sure. As we watched the last lightning strike or the last lightning storm come in, we had about 8,200 hits across Oregon and Washington, and that storm was extremely effective. And that is a good indicator of the conditions and the fuels and their ability to ignite based on lightning. What's concerning for us is today and the next few days. We are experiencing a push of a monsoonal moisture coming into Oregon today. And that is likely to bring thunderstorms, primarily over south central and into southeast Oregon. And you overlay that with warming, drying, hotter conditions in the Columbia Basin. We're starting to see relative humidities in the teens and in some areas, single digits. You compound high temperatures, lower relative humidity, and continued thunderstorms. That is a pretty significant indicator for us. We're also going to see increased thunderstorms Wednesday, with the best chances of those hitting our Oregon Cascades, southeast Oregon. Of most concern is that we do expect to see critical windy and dry conditions for most of eastern Oregon on Thursday and Friday. And we expect that this lightning storm to be highly efficient. So when we take a look at conditions on the ground, we take a look at more lightning, and then we take a look at a Thursday, Friday potential windy event. That gives us a lot of concern about maintaining fires that we have currently and the potential for new fires starting.
And I know that firefighting resources have been, put to the test in recent days. How is your level of resources looking right now? And what kind of help are you getting from collaborations with other agencies, either within the state, outside of the state, even from Canada?
Yeah, great question. We rely on a complete system of partners when it comes to wildland response. That is our federal agencies. That is the Oregon Department of Forestry. That is the Oregon Department of State Fire Marshal. We use the Oregon Fire Mutual Aid System, which our responsibility is to protect fires that are impacting communities and structures. Oregon Department of Forestry, obviously the Wildland Fire Agency for the state, protect state lands. And we do that through the Northwest Coordination Center, where we daily prioritize fire. And then we resource through each agency's individual resourcing partners, but we come together as one team, one plan, one mission per fire. So the feds mobilize through their system, the Oregon Department of Forestry and OSFM bring our tools. We each all have a specific type of tool needed. When you look at the types of fires that are impacting Oregon, not only in our forests, but also impacting our wildland urban interface where people live and recreate. And so having the ability to bring all of those resources allows for a coordinated response. Unfortunately, because we are at PL5 in Oregon, we are also at PL5 nationally. And what that means is a significant drawdown of resources. And so many of our agencies rely on interstate agreements. We've brought in California, we've brought in other states like Washington. Throughout the system, I think other agencies have brought in our states from all over the Northwest and our country. And then I also know that at the federal level, they're looking at bringing in the possibility of international resources as well. And so we really do rely on these interstate, international agreements when we get to this level.
Well, Mariana Ruiz-Temple, Thank you so much for taking the time to update us today and for all the hard work you and your colleagues are doing right now in Oregon.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for thinking about them.
Of course. Mariana Ruiz-Temple is the Oregon State Fire Marshal.